Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Take the Leap. I'm your host, Colleen Biggs, and I'm so excited to have Lady Adey here with us today. We're going to be talking all about publishing and why it is so important for you to write your story in a book. We are going to dig into that today. But before we do that, I would love to thank our sponsor of today's show, No Problem Parenting. And that would be with Jackie Finneman. Are you frustrated with your kids? Do you constantly worry about them? Or maybe you're just sick and tired of dealing with misbehaviors in your home. Oh boy, did I wish that Jackie Finneman was around when I was raising all these kids. Well, have no fear, No Problem Parenting is here to help you turn any emotional or behavior problem into a no problem while strengthening your relationship with your kids at the same time. You don't have to be the bad guy to get your kids to behave. So join the No Problem Parenting community where you will find down-to-earth practical fun and no nonsense tips and ideas on how to deal with and overcome any parenting challenge. Go to noproblimparenting.com to get started now. Become the confident leader that your kids crave. Isn't that so true? Instead of dealing with the problem, you become the confident leader in directing your children. And I call her the child whisperer. So all of you, make sure you reach out to noproblimparenting.com. And thank you for being our sponsor on today's show. All right, well, let's get back to our guest, Lady Adey. And Ladey and I met in a business development group that we're part of. And I'm going to encourage every single female, male listening to this to find your tribe, right? I have started the Leap community. I started a community back in 2019 because research shows that when you are engaged in a community, you're happier, you're healthier, you're more productive, and you're more successful. So that is why I created a community in 2019 when I retired from corporate America. And then through that journey, I decided to take my 20 years of business coaching and consulting into entrepreneurship and work with female entrepreneurs. And one of the reasons why, again, I started this podcast was I wanted all women to speak up and use their voices, just like Ladey is today. But I believe that so many of us have so much experience and skill sets to share with other people. This is Ladey's opportunity today and all of our guests' opportunity to share their experience, what they've been through, and why it's so important for each one of us as entrepreneurs to take these steps towards success. And so we're going to jump in with Ladey. She is an award-winning networking expert, the author of Successful Business Networking Online. What did I just say? Building a community, right? And publisher for other authors, including dyslexic authors. That's amazing. Ladey is currently writing her 11th book, ladies and gentlemen, her 11th book, and has a series of children's books, which she co-authors with her eldest daughter. Ladey said she made the leap to live in the world of books and has become obsessed with producing the best books possible with her authors. She loves the fact that in her work and personal life, she is able to talk book all day and every day. Never happier than when she is reading aloud to her 3.5-year-old granddaughter. Ladey, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Colleen. And yeah, you're so right about having that tribe and that community, because it's where your friends are too, and your new friends and your potential clients. It's just a wonderful arena to be in.
Yeah, research shows, and I've been reading so many books on research lately, and it talks about when you're isolating yourself, it actually cuts years off your life. Your heart rate increases, depression sets in, and people have a shorter lifespan when they isolate themselves from other individuals. And so if this isn't a wake-up call today for all of you to be happier, healthier, and more joyful, join a tribe. And I want to talk first about your business networking online. So talk to me about, why did you start this? Why do you do this? How has that assisted you? And of course, many of the authors that you work with. Talk about community. Let's talk about that for a second.
Certainly. Well, I mean, it links in with you what you're saying about being isolated, and obviously what we've all gone through with COVID and lockdowns. That is what happened. But also the business community suddenly found they were without their networks during that period. So that's why I wrote the book about online networking, because when we first went into that only a mere 2 years ago, people didn't think it would last. They weren't happy with it. And now it's a stalwart of networking.
Mhm.
And I love it because I can get to, well, I met you, for example.
That's right.
I meet people across the pond in different, I can go to across to Europe, to Australia, to America, and then back home for tea, all in the space of like 4 hours. It's quite incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing. Where are you located, Ladey? Let's share with our listeners today.
I'm in Lincolnshire in England.
Okay.
So
Yeah. And, there's several women that I network with now that are in different countries. And I wasn't networking with women in different countries before that date. It was, for the last 20 years, I've been networking with women in the United States because most of the time we met in person. So I would fly to different states. Maybe you would go to some close, countries within your area to be able to network as well. And now I love that you said you can be in 4 different places within 4 hours and still be home for tea and to read to your granddaughter. And to read to
yes,
your
that's
granddaughter.
right.
And we don't have to hop on planes and get in automobiles and buses and taxis and Ubers and stay in hotels. And I remember in one day I was on at 10 o'clock at night, I was on a stage in India. And, earlier that morning, I was running an event with women worldwide. So again, the beauty of technology, if we look at the perspective of that and embrace it as to how much more exposure that gives us for our visibility, it's huge. So thank you so much for, writing that book, Successful Business Networking Online. That is, where can we find that book anyway, Ladey?
It's on Amazon or it's on
Okay.
my website, which I know
Yeah.
will be in the show notes. But I really wanted to see whether online networking was different to in-person networking.
Mm.
And I found the principles remained the same. So it's not about selling to each other, it's about growing relationships. And from that will come a natural source of clientele or friendship.
Yeah.
And then online just gives, there's different rules,
Yeah.
just different protocols.
Yeah.
And one of my top ones is no eating on camera. And then we relax. It's like you can drink on camera, you can have a drink at any point, that's fine. But actually eating, because the camera goes so in, it's one of the, let's not do that.
Yeah. I totally understand that. In a lot of conferences that I'm on that are longer days, right? If we're on there for longer during the time, they always want your videos on. And I'm a big proponent of turn your video on, you're engaged. When we're in person, we wouldn't turn our chairs around, from a stage and face the back, which is kind of what you feel like when someone turns off their video. But I say, hey, if you're shoving down a sandwich or some soup or a salad, go ahead and turn it off for 10 minutes and then you can turn it back on. But yeah,
Right.
I totally understand that. When there's no breaks, it makes sense, right? If you're hungry and sometimes you have to, in person, I have to bring like bags of cashews and kind of, sneak a snack in the back of the room. Okay. Well, you weren't always a publisher and I've written books. Step Into the Spotlight was my latest book. It was a collaboration book. I've been part of other collaboration books, yet I never moved down the road to publish other books. So talk to me about where this love of working with authors has come from, for you and where it started, because you were a CEO of a charity. Is that right, Ladey? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I've been CEO of a number of charities, and that's where I thought my whole of my working life was going to be. I moved into that sector actually from a typesetting, from a book world into charity, and then stayed there for 25, 30 years. And then the wheels came off, things don't always go right. And the trustees decided they didn't want me as their CEO. And instead of sitting down and having an adult conversation and explaining what any issues were, they tried to get me out the back door, which was next year was very, very tough, very upsetting. And I had to learn to forgive. I had to learn not to get bitter about it and pull on my faith. But in that time, I got the bones of a book. And from that, I sort of went right back to my roots. But any good memoir comes often from a place of angst, or there's something that stimulates you to write a memoir kind of book. But my book was also on helping others to get through disappointment, disillusionment, discouragement, and how to do it safely, how to be kind to yourself, how to realize that, yeah, other people might not behave to you as you would like or as you would behave, but actually there's lessons in all of it, and it's your attitude that makes the difference. And because of my faith, I knew that it wasn't going to be the end, that there was going to be something from it. And it took, that was 2014. And then in 2016, people said to me, well, you've written this book, you've published it, which I did with an American publisher, actually. But from that, why don't you help me and write my book? And that's how it all began. And you don't, until you do something, you don't realize how much you actually already know. Sometimes we give all our power away. We give our, we think other people are better than us or got more experience than us, more skills than us. But sometimes they just don't. And so we were working with people thinking they knew how to publish a book, to discover that our standards were actually higher than their standards. And the way they typeset a book wasn't how I'd been taught or how I wanted it to be. So bit by bit, we started going, actually, we can do this. And because Amazon has just blown the whole publishing industry out of the water, making it so that everybody can write a book and do it to a lesser or greater extent, we began to sort of say, okay, what can we offer the marketplace? How can I help authors have the best book they possibly can? And then that has developed, and we're expecting in another 5 years to have 100 authors that we'll have worked with.
That's amazing. That's so amazing. You said a couple of things because of your faith. And what degree do you believe your faith drives you?
Oh, it's 100%.
Yeah.
I have a deal with God that I can write one book which is secular, but the next book needs to be a faith book, and he will bless both. And it really has happened that way for me. And then, not all my clients are faith people. Not all of them are Christians or otherwise, and very different lifestyles, some, and that is okay. But I do have in my contracts certain boundaries. So I won't publish anything with swearing in it. I won't have any blasphemy. And because I stick primarily with children's books and non-fictions, I don't think there's a place for that in those. I know there's some business people who have a very alternative viewpoint, and that's fine, but they're not the authors that we would publish.
You said another very important golden nugget there, which is, we don't have to serve or work with everyone. We have a specific demographic and a specific avatar and a person and an audience that we're looking to reach. And remember that, know who they are when you're digging down into your business. I actually work with my clients and we go through an exercise for them to figure out exactly what their ideal client is and the type of books they read, who they follow, what are their habits. And when you know them better, then the messages that you're sending out, you're going to attract the people that need to be your right client. So I love that you said that, and how you're working with the clients that you're working with. So thank you for sharing that. And you had mentioned something when I asked you about your expertise. You said, sometimes life hits you like a bullet. And for me, it was when I was suspended as the CEO because you didn't fit, right? And maybe you fit from what you thought you fit, but they didn't think you fit. And we can't change other people. We can only hold, which you mentioned earlier, our own power. Ladey. And by allowing compliments to land, by allowing others to validate us, by allowing testimonials, by allowing us to celebrate our achievements and set our boundaries, we hold our own power. Do you find that, and I just love the way you said that about us understanding that we know more than we think. Why is it, do you think, Ladey, that women give away their power so easily and so often?
So often, yeah, it is. I think as you get older, you get better at it, at realizing that you do know what you know. That yeah, some of it is, well, it's altered ego. Some of it is, you know, the what's the saying, when you know, you put the different masks on, and we're afraid of our power sometimes, and people can be fearful of success. People think it's the opposite, but actually more people are worried about what would happen if they were successful in what they do, rather than thinking, I can't do that. When I speak to authors, potential authors, they come from two different angles. They either come with, oh, everybody's going to read my book, or no one's going to read my book. And actually, neither is true. It's somewhere in the middle, because no one is going to read everything, no matter how wonderful it is. Not everybody reads every single book that's out there. And those who feel that, well, what have I really got to say? My job is to build them up, because I only take on books that will make a difference. I only take on books where I know the author's going to put in the work, and I only take on books where they've got something very special. So, you know, therefore I'm their first reader, I'm their first supporter, their first cheerleader, and walking them through the whole process. We've identified about 86 processes, from thinking of the idea, I'm going to write a book one day, to actually getting it in a bookshop or on Amazon.
You know, I would mention to anyone out there that is an author that's looking, you know, thinking about writing another book, or has a book inside of them and they haven't written it yet, but they're cool, they get the pooling, right? They have that pooling to write a book. And I want you to think about any books that you've ever read, or articles or things that you've seen that have spoken directly to you, where you felt like it was written for you, or that person understands because they went through my experience. There are people out there right now that are waiting for you to write that book, because they need your advice. They need to know that you've either moved a mountain and now they can move it, right? Just like the 4-minute rule. If we were all told that the 4-minute mile, we were all told the 4-minute mile couldn't be broken. In fact, doctors would say that your heart would explode. There was all these reasons of why it couldn't be beat, until someone did. And then what happened? Several people right behind them did. They all were capable. They just didn't believe it was possible. They didn't believe it was possible. That's where the faith part comes in for me too, Ladey, is when we have a higher source of a being like God that we believe in, then we tend to lean toward that faith, and knowing that we can tap into that power and kind of get out of our head space, the head bubble of us having to figure everything out, and lean into the plan that God's created for us.
That's right. And I love the saying, which, you know, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Right. I love that one. And I just think, yeah, that, and once you put it out there that, oh, I need help here, or I want to think about this, all of a sudden you either meet somebody, or you're connected to someone, or somebody refers you to someone. It's quite amazing. And I also found, when I was doing the networking, that people would say what their barriers were. So I've always wanted to write a book, but I can't because I'm dyslexic. I heard that again and again and again. And I thought, hang on, I'm dyslexic, and I've written a book, and I've written another book and another one. As you know, as you said, onto my 11th one now. I've helped 30, 40 other people write their books, but I'm dyslexic. So I looked at that and thought, actually, I'm going to make sure that isn't a barrier, because you don't have to write a book. You can talk a book. You can have people helping you with the editing, with the proofreading, and build a team around you, but it can still be your voice at the end of the day. So that one, I just go, well, actually, if you still want to do it, there are ways, and technology is just amazing now to enable that to happen.
Yeah, you can be blind and write a
Yeah.
book actually, because you can use all the technology that we have, apps and everything online to say what you want to say, and do an audible book that way, and it will transcribe it for you. So yeah,
That's right.
you can do that blind. I had a lady reach out to me one time and she said, I'm struggling to get registered for your next upcoming event. Can you help me out because I'm blind? And I said, absolutely, I'll help you out. We don't discriminate, no matter what your challenges are, what it is that, actually becomes your superpower is what happens, in most situations. We're all in this together. And as we started this podcast, community and surrounding yourself with people that are doing similar things of you, that have similarities in common. So if you are an author or want to write a book and you really want to do it in the presence of someone like Ladey, as we've talked with her today, she shared about her faith. She shared about her dyslexia. She shared about her triumphs and her setbacks that she's had, and none of that held her back. What it did was it made her stronger and gave her more faith for her to continue moving forward in the direction that she's going. And Ladey, what would you say to someone that was out there that didn't think that they could write a book, or they have all these reasons why they can't write a book or they shouldn't write a book? And you and I know that someone's out there praying, waiting for them to write this book right now. What would you say to them?
I would say you've probably got something very special to pass on. And quite often my authors will say, as long as one person gets something out of this book, that's all that matters. Now, obviously, we want it to be a lot more readers and a lot more eyes on the book, but that's the motivation. If just one person it would make a difference too. And invariably, we don't realize we're all on individual journeys, albeit sometimes we cross over and we help one another along the way, but nothing is lost, nothing is wasted. So even if you've gone through most traumatic things, it's never wasted, because you can come through it, and at the end of that you can walk through a different door. And having a book, it puts you in a very different place. It's a very exciting adventure, and you never know where that book's going to take you. And that's what gets me very excited about the whole idea of a book. And I don't prescribe to do a book in a weekend, do a book in a couple of months. For me, it takes longer, particularly if it's the first book, because you have to find your voice. And that takes practice. It takes doing more, or it takes reading other books. I mean, that's what Stephen King says. The more books you read, the better you become as a writer, which is why I've got a book club out there. But, it's all of those things together, which just makes the whole thing magic. And as we speak, today is Book Lover Day.
No way. That is
is
very exciting. For those of you that are watching this live on Facebook, that is Book Lover Day. And it's August 9th. For those of you that are listening on the podcast, we have a whole slew of links below for you to connect with Ladey, to get to know her better, to have a chat with her, to get into her community, to maybe look at what she's doing, connect with her on LinkedIn. What are some of the best ways, Ladey, would you say for our listeners to connect with you after today's show?
LinkedIn is my all-time favorite, because you can message me and I can get back to you very quickly, and we don't have to do piles and piles of paper one way or another. So yeah, LinkedIn works well. Or my Calendly is on my website. I'm not actually doing one-to-ones for another 6 weeks, just because of volume of work.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the calendar is open after that.
That's what I tell people, it's a good problem to have when you have so much work that you can't do one-on-ones. That's phenomenal. Well, Ladey, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your heartfelt urge and plea and call for anyone that's sitting out there and feels that they have a book in them, but maybe feels like they're not worthy enough to write the book. You certainly give us every reason in the book, no pun intended, for us to be able to believe in ourselves and have the faith to know that what we have inside of us and what we have to share needs to be heard by someone out there. And you're right. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So Ladey may be your teacher and someone who's going to walk you through your next book endeavor. So ladies, remember, you're the only you that's ever been. You're the only you that will ever be. And when I think about that, that's very heavy. I want to leave a legacy. And if that legacy is a book that someone can pick up at a later time, or one of my great, great, great grandchildren picks up and says, oh my gosh, my great, great, great grandmother wrote this book back in 2020, during the worst time in America or whatever it is, in the world, and reads that book and it makes an impact on them, then so be it, right? So how are we leaving a legacy? And it doesn't have to be something big. It could just be your everyday acts of kindness and your everyday way that you impact others in your life. So we will leave you with that, and thank Ladey so much for being here today as we talk about writing your story in a book, truly making an impact on the lives of others. Thank you all for being with us today. And until next time, don't forget, be you and be strong. We'll see you then. Bye-bye for now.